Hello everyone, it is day one of Band's Books Week 2021 and today we are starting off our discussion of Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. And like every year, the Band Books mug makes an appearance, and as for tradition, we're kicking the week off with some coffee. Not every time, but I think for the past 2 years I've had however long we've done the mug thing. I've started the week off with just some coffee, so whatever you're drinking, cheers with me. Let's get started. So if you didn't see the announcement video, basically what I wanted to do this year was not divide the book into sections and rather talk more broadly about different topics and themes and events that the book portrays or covers or discusses. So today I wanted to devote the video to talking a bit about the context of the time that the book takes place in, because I'm sure a lot of you probably aren't familiar with this specific historical event. So the book is about the author growing up during the Iranian Revolution in Iran during the late 70s, and then she grows up throughout the book as the book progresses. And I don't know a ton about this point in time. Most of my knowledge came from reading this book, but I did want to devote a little bit of time to sort of laying some very basic foundational work just in case you wanted to know a little bit going in. Marjane, I think, explains what's going on fairly well and fairly not simplistically, but understandably, as if, like, you know, from a child's perspective, so you can kind of get a very comprehensible view of it, because she was very young when this was going on, so I feel like naturally you'd want to explain it in a more understandable way. If you're looking back from your perspective as a child, because when you are a child, when something like this happens, you tend to have very not oversimplified way of seeing it, but you know, the adults don't show you the whole story, so you know very basic pieces of it, and now looking back on her childhood, she can add that adult context to it. So the revolution took place at the end of the 70s. 1979 is the most noteworthy year of it, from what I've seen. And basically there was a societal protest and revolt of the previous government. The Shah was the leader's title. Basically the people of Iran were struggling financially and were having a really hard, difficult time, and the government was not caring for them in the way that they needed to be, so they were protesting, and the people in power were very aggressive on them and, you know, very militaristic, and there were, you know, casualties at protests, and people were injured and arrested, and all of these terrible things that Marjane goes into a bit in her book. There was an instance where a movie theater was set on fire, and from what I understand, that was one of the bigger triggers of the revolution. And basically they overthrew the Shah, and the powers that came after were very fundamentalist in their thinking and belief system, and they forced all of these rules onto the people, such as the mandatory veiling that Marjane talks about, that women had to veil their hair, and women protested that at the time, as Marjane talks about in Persepolis a bit, and as a child she didn't like it, and her upbringing was very much not based in, but you know, her childhood was very much affected by this, and like coming from Christian purity culture, like definitely like the rules people set up around women's bodies when you're a child as growing up female can really shape you and your perspective of yourself. I actually want to devote later videos this week to modesty when it comes to like women and religion, and also just growing up female in a society and how Marjane tells that through her visual narrative, and also just my own experiences. And then I wanted to end today on a delineation that I want to make between just religious fundamentalists and just plain regular religious people. Religious fundamentalism is rooted in, obviously it varies slightly depending on what religion it is. I come from Christian fundamentalism, if you're new here, if you don't know. So that's mostly what I have experience with. Marjane obviously experienced Islamic fundamentalism, but I did want to quickly put in a bit of a disclaimer here that if I am scrutinizing a religion, I am mostly critiquing the fundamentalist angle that everyone should adhere to these very strict laws of the religion and no other interpretation of this religion is acceptable, or you know, you're sinning if you break this rule that I have, that not everyone in this religion has, you know what I mean? So there is a difference, and know that when I'm saying something about fundamentalists, I am by no means attacking a religion as a whole, but more so just the very legalistic ideologies that fundamentalists can have. I hope that makes sense. I hope this was a good start to the week. If you are still a bit wishy-washy about the time period, obviously keep reading the book because Marjane does so much of a better job than I could do. I will also leave some links in the description to some more resources if you want to learn more about this point in history. That's all from me today. Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another discussion of Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. That's all from me, and until next time, have safe and consensual sex. Goodbye, everybody.